because we're not,
There's Bob.
sorry.
There's Bob. He's starting.
Yeah, I think we're ready to go, so I'll read the script. Good afternoon. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on June 22nd, 2022. In accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations, my name is Bob Rawls and I serve as the chair. Hearings are broadcast live on Channel 18 and are also recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. Today's hearing is being conducted in person and by remote video conference. Remote meetings are currently allowed by the governor's authorization through July 15th, 2022. The agenda and copies of documents for review today are posted on the town's website. To all participants, after hearing from applicants, representatives, and interested parties, I will ask for comments and questions from commissioners. Please remain muted unless you are speaking. If you're attending by phone, you can mute using *6 and use *6 again to unmute. If you're on the Teams platform, indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. If you're attending by phone, please use the if you're by phone, please unmute with *6 and address the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself. Is that me? That's me. Okay. Identify yourself for the record. There must be a microphone's turned off. If you are not a commissioner and you are on the Teams platform, please keep your camera turned off unless you're speaking. The commission will vote on each matter by roll call so that we have a record of a quorum. I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
Mary Sullivan is not here today, I understand. She may come with us later. Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey. Not here today. And I am here, so we do have a quorum. Nikki Smith, Chatham's Conservation Agent, will now lead us through the agenda, including whether any items are being continued.
We do have some continuances. The 75, 59, and 27 Tillipy Run will be continued, as well as 20 Jericho Lane. So we'll get to those when they come up on the agenda. But the first item is a request for a plan change for 63 Shell Drive Development LLC, map 14K, parcel 15, W53, SE 103490, plan modifications for the guest house, pool, and patio. And I will share my screen with the updated plan if I can. Sorry, I'm on a browser instead of my normal app, so give me a moment.
Do we have a representative?
Ask that.
Yes,
Yes.
good afternoon. This is Taria McGrail with Coastal Engineering.
Okay.
Can you see the plan yet?
Well, Nikki's trying to get it on this. Are you trying it, or Nikki's trying to display it?
I'm trying to, but
But I don't know if you were also trying to display it, so we might have colliding
I won't do
displays.
anything yet.
if it's easy enough for you, Taria, if you could do it, that would be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can try. I'm going to try right now. Hopefully this is the right one.
Looks very similar to what we have, so.
Okay, good. Yes, okay. All right. Just going to zoom out a little bit. All right. So what we're proposing on this plan modification is to shift the entire pool house, the pool area and the patio, shift it all upland of that blue 100-foot buffer line. In doing this, we're also removing a retaining wall that was previously along that, I believe it's the west side of the pool. So that is removed from the design now. We are also proposing to shift the natural wood path that meandered through the buffer somewhat. We've shifted it to be completely upland of the 50-foot buffer. As we move out towards the water here on the property, we had previously proposed a boathouse / recreation building out in this location. And now we're proposing a guest house out at this location. Overall, with the adjustments to the pool house, the pool, the patio surround, removing the wall and adjustments to the guest house, we're looking at having a 1,037 square foot decrease in coverage in the 50 to 100 foot buffer in comparison to the previously approved plan. So that's a brief summary. If there's any questions, we'd like to request that this be approved as a revised plan.
All right, thank you. Anyone want to go first?
Hi, I have a couple of questions. On the conversion from the pool house to the guest house, that's going to include a septic system now?
So the building out here was always going to be connected to the septic system. We're showing the same utility connections coming down through this corridor here. And then it's going to tie into the septic that is located out by the driveway. So there's no change, no substantial change to the utility corridor. All of the restoration work is the same as what was previously approved.
Okay. And the footpath, there is no change to the footpath?
The only change is to shift it so it's completely upland of the 50-foot buffer. There was a portion of it previously that meandered into the 50, so now we've shifted it east so that it's completely upland of that 50-foot buffer, which is shown there in red.
I see, okay. Thank you. That's all I had, thank you.
Okay, good, thanks. Yeah, Janet?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. Yes. Thanks, Taria. So the retaining wall, was originally going to create something of an infinity edge to that pool because it dropped straight off from there and there was no patio area beyond it. What impact does that have on the grading? I can't recall, and I've been looking at the previously approved plan to see how the grading approached that wall. And it looks a little bit different on the revised plan, but can you just walk us through how the grades work?
Sure. So the patio elevation of the pool and the surround has remained the same up around elevation 33.
Yeah.
We were able to remove the wall by shifting the whole area east. You can see that this restoration area has remained the same as on the previous plan. But now that you see that we have grading lines going down to that, so in place of the wall, we've been able to put in a more natural slope.
Okay, so by shifting it, you ended up in at a flatter surface areas that would allow you just to taper the
grade
slope.
it out.
Okay, and so the total is 1,037 square foot overall reduction in impact?
Correct, when you compare the two plans.
Yeah, wow, okay. I'm for less impact, that's great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. You got another one? Go ahead.
Just one more question, quick. The mitigation will remain the same, correct? The amount of mitigation?
Correct.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
no changes to that plan.
Okay, all right. So just to make sure, we don't have a revised planting plan, and that is because even though there's a fairly significant movement of coverage out of the resource area, the location and number and type of those mitigation plants are unchanged?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't know, I am curious as to why this change was made. Is it something that?
The
Care to
property
talk-
is now under different ownership.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
So they made some modifications and we were able to pull away a bit up around the house and at the pool to, minimize some of the items that were perhaps more costly, for example, the wall.
right. There will be no additional vegetation / shrub / trees cut as a result of moving the path?
No, the path is now located in the area that was going to always be disturbed by the utility installation. And that's part of the full restoration area.
Okay. All right, so it doesn't sound like there's anything we can think of to object to here. I don't think that I can. So yeah, I'm trying to think of any conditions we might want to place on it, but I don't think I can think of any of those either unless someone else can.
So my suggestion would be to, since it's just a plan change, not an amended order, because the overall scope of the project isn't changing, it would just be a letter of approval stating that the mitigation is to remain the same unless they come back before us, and I'll state the square footage of reduction and the no additional impact with the changing of the path location.
Right. Oh, well, one other question. With regard to converting the guest, the building, the boathouse, I guess is what we used to call it, to the guest house, does it have to go back through Board of Health or zoning or anything?
No, not through Board of Health, because the lot area, the upland area is sufficient for the number of bedrooms. It is going through, it's the 2-bedroom guest house is allowed by right. There is just a ZBA application out there for approval of the steps down to the water. But that was part of the previously approved plan, was the beach access stairs.
Right, okay. All right, so do we need to vote on such a letter? I guess.
Just a vote
Bob, I
to,
have a quick question.
Okay.
Since it's no longer a boathouse, where are the boats going? Because I thought that's where they were storing their kayaks, et cetera.
Right, so it was always intended to be boathouse / beach recreation chairs and whatnot storage building. So that space is incorporated into the building itself. So the intention is not to have kayaks and paddle boards laying around the boathouse on the exterior.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. So do we need to vote on this letter?
yep, so it just is approval to accept the site plan.
The plan change?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan change for 63 Shell Drive.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I vote aye, so that is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, have a nice day.
Next, we have the notice of intent for 75 Tulipy Run, 59 Tulipy Run, and 27 Tulipy Run for the rock revetments. They have requested a continuance to July 27th. Let me just double check that date. We went out, yes, July 27th. We went out with the representative from Coastal Engineering, Catherine, and I went out with Greg Berman last Wednesday, so he could give a third-party consultation. So he has not gotten us the report yet, so Catherine wanted enough time to get him anything he wanted, as well as be able to review and comment and change anything as necessary. So that's why it's continued to the 27th. There has been significant erosion since even we did our group site visit out there. So they may separate 27 away from the other two to try and get something done with that one, which is the one that's facing the erosion with Fish and Wildlife property. But we'll see how that goes. So for now, it's just a continuance to July 27th.
I'll make a motion that we continue 75 Tilapy Run, 59 Tilapy Run, and 27 Tilapy Run to July 27th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
All right, the next one is the notice of intent for 20 Jericho Lane, Mark Leibovitz, map 10B, parcel B2, SE 103541. This was the removal of an existing pier and relocation. They have asked to continue to July 13th. They're still dealing with the same issues, more related to zoning and building than us. So they haven't decided on a final design. So they want to go to July 13th at this point. I was going to suggest that this will continue them to July 13th, but if they ask for another continuance, I'm going to ask them to just withdraw without prejudice and bring us back new material for whenever they're ready, so that we don't have to continually add it to our agendas. So for now, it's July 13th, with kind of the preface that this is the last continuance for now.
Make a motion to continue 20 Jericho Lane to July 13th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
All right, so next, Bob Perry is here, I believe, yep. Do you want to do them at the same time, or?
It could work.
Okay.
They're different, but I'll be happy to explain it.
Does the commission have a preference, just open them both and?
Yeah, I think they're very similar.
Okay.
So
So we are going to do 85 Capri Lane, Richard and Jane Linehan, map 13C, parcel 29C12, SE 103558. Replace the existing bulkhead, in-ground steps, and existing elevated stairway over the bulkhead. And 86 Capri Lane, Tama and John Andres, map 13C, parcel C13, SE 103557, replacement and extension of an existing bulkhead.
Happy to have the assistance. Thank you.
gotta hit the
Doing it the
mark.
old-fashioned way. For the record, I'm Bob Perry, Cape Cod Engineering, working with the families at 85 and 86 Capri Lane. That's the Lenahans at 85 and the Andres at 86. One of the projects, that's the one at 85, is a reconstruction of existing marine bulkhead of a low profile. The project at 86, while there is 15 feet approximately of the same bulkhead that crosses over the 10-foot strip onto 86, the 86 project is primarily an extension in a location where there currently is no marine bulkhead. So I'll just describe the area. We've got a coastal bank. The notice of intent went into some detail about what the bank is comprised of. It's kind of a hard pan material, but there's areas of fill. There's probably a long history here on the coast. We have a common access for other portions of the neighborhood that goes between these two properties that is currently bulkheaded. There is an aluminum common access stairway in the 10-foot strip. And the 85 property, I'm going to address that first, has its own seasonal stair that comes over the bulkhead and provides access down to the water. The bulkhead is a horizontal timber. It's not exactly the way you would design one today. I saw no reason to change the coastal engineering structure variety. It's It's a very low profile, very narrow, effective means of holding the base of the bank. And so we basically have an in-kind replacement, but with vertical sheeting instead of the horizontal sheeting. I will speak to the way in which this would be constructed in a minute, but I just want to tell you, as we go toward the west, on the left-hand side of the sheet, there's a right angle return. We thought a slightly less sharp return would be better. It accomplishes the same goal. And at that location, there's a rather old but existing set of in-ground steps that had provided year-round access to the shore. It is a difficult shoreline, but there is, I think, some reasonable access that can be afforded by this year-round when the other stairways are not in place. And in discussing this with the owner, they asked for the in-ground steps to be included in this application. So we did, and we've included that basic description in the notice of intent. I'm going to go from left to right. That set of steps today is concrete block units. They would be taken out, pretty much handwork. The area in that narrow gap would then be accessed using a dingo-type apparatus. It's pretty much all downhill, and simple block units, but not concrete, likely some form of a stone rectangle, approximately 2.5 feet wide, 8 to 10 inches in height, maybe 10 or 12 inches in width, would be laid in place. Mostly handwork, but a very small loader-type dingo would have to deliver those, I think, to do it safely. Then that area, having been altered to have that work done, would be seeded over with native seed. We know that the soil is very suitable for recovery. It's of a clay content. You can see the thickness of the growth in the area. A lot of it's invasive. There's no practical way to remove those invasives without going hog wild on the bank. And, you know, with the bulkhead, there's no instability caused by the invasives. It's really undercutting from storm tides. So, put very simply, that's the stone step portion of this project, and we can talk about it if you have questions, as you might. The bulkhead itself, and I want to point out that in a couple of cases over on Riders Cove, we were successful in the way the work was handled, where a crane, an extended telescopic crane, can hang these components into place and have them installed from a central location near the access way. I spoke to Anchor Marine about this. We did it in 2 cases off of Kent Lane, and Chris informs me that that can be done here. So it limits the type of activity that would go on at the base of the bank. There's going to be men working down there. The crane can handle the hoisting and the vibrating in of these sheets. These are fairly short sheets, 10 feet. They'll be out of the ground about 4.5 and in 5 or 6. They could be as short as 8 to 10, but I think right now we're specifying 10. There's no pilings. It's just a horizontal timber whaler that would be Greenheart wood, and then helical screws into the bank. Should there be the need, and I think it's just a safe call, we're proposing portable fiberglass mats to be laid down along the water side of the bulkhead. There can also be a sand deposit placed under those mats. The bank isn't a huge sediment source because it's been bulkheaded, but it's also made of clay. So while there's some sediment in there, and my belief is that there's no harm to a certain amount of sediment that would go into that area. We have some salt marsh. It's indicated on the plan. So the mats would provide protection from foot traffic on the salt marsh. It's not out of the question that a small machine would have to operate down there. It would be rubber-tracked, the miniest of mini excavators, but that machine would operate only on the mats or on any sandy deposits. And wherever you don't see the indication of marsh, we have a muddy, gravelly material that's firm and would support a machine, but only at low tide, of course. So the job must be timed according to the tide. So it's a remove and replace project. Most of the components can be hung and installed into place. There will be handwork, and there's the outside possibility of a machine. And the mats, which have been used routinely in similar cases, would be deployed along with a sand dose. So that's the summary of 85. And since you invited me to talk about them both, I'll move over to 86. Now, to the right side of our sheet, we have some rather severe scarps that are shown on the plan. That's where we have plan doesn't really do it justice. They're quite steep, and there's a slight amount of perched water coming out of these areas. There's a lot of wrecked vegetation. A lot of that vegetation is collapsed. There's 2 black cherries that have fallen over. They're still alive, but they're fallen over out onto the marsh. The bulkhead line that's proposed really best fits the contour of the shoreline shape. So we're kind of going through a couple of hummocks of soil, but we're also outboard of the bank in a couple of spots. Depending upon the condition of the bank at the time the job starts will dictate exactly where it goes. Those black cherries are in the way and would have to be cut and hoisted out by the crane. Since the crane can haul anything in, it can certainly haul those segments of those trees out. So there's a preparatory step that must be taken along this reach of the shore. As we go along the shoreline of the 86 Capri Lane, and we get to where the bulkhead is proposed to end, we do have an improved level of stability as we go off-site. There's a very great crop of bayberry that's growing down there, and no signs of the type of slope that could erode or any erosion. So we're not going all the way to the lot line. We're angling the return 3 or 4 feet from the lot line, and we will make sure that in that location there really isn't any significant excavation at all. So those areas where we are going to have to fill, those areas and possibly some other areas along the top of the bulkhead in a fairly narrow width, those would be planted with beach grass when this job is completed, provided it's the right time of year. The prediction is that the growth on the bank would probably overcome that beach grass, but it is the right thing to do when the construction is over. The same work protocol that applied to 85 works here. That machine is going to sit just at the top of the stairs, and if you've ever seen that telescopic crane, it's fairly impressive, but it can hang materials. It can hang bags of sand that then get tether released to allow sand to be placed by the crane to fill in those voids. So our effort here with you is to provide an introduction to this project, to describe how we've considered how it would be built. We've talked to the contractor, who's very likely going to be the contractor. We have done it before in similar cases, and so we did put an outline in the notice about the performance standards issues that relate to the coastal bank, the coastal beach. We have 2 homes here. The one that's primarily important is 86, which it existed well prior to August 1978, so we don't have any collision with the 1978 rule for either property. And I believe that the owners of 86 are content with the common access, so there's no stairway proposed here. Anchors, those would be helical screws, and there's no excavation associated with doing that, except at the very, very top of the revetment, where there is a little need to get to that point behind the main whaler. So there's a summary. I've probably taken enough time telling you about it, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Before I forget, I know Jane Lenahan is in the audience tonight. Oh, Rich? So I haven't seen them for 6 months, so I can't say I recognize them as much as I should. So that's our presentation. Be glad to take your questions. Thank you.
What was that? All right, thanks, Bob. Anybody have any questions to start with? I have quite a few myself, but oh, wait.
Hi, Bob, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm here. Thank you.
I got a few questions. The seasonal steps for both stairways, where do they get stored?
To my knowledge, they are set up and lashed to the steps that exist there. I think in the aluminum staircase instance, it's pulled up above the bulkhead and tied off. So it's in that zone where we have I think there's a landing there. The 85 seasonal staircase, which is fairly small, is pulled up onto the landing of the stairs that would remain on the coastal bank.
And those are stored seasonally now?
They are.
Okay. You talked about the invasives on the coastal bank. It's pretty dense on the bank with the invasives, and then you're talking about planting beach grass above the
Yeah. It could be short-lived.
above the bulkhead. Is there any way you can remove the invasives for part of that bank and maybe treat the invasives so the beach grass has a chance to survive?
I know that in past cases, when there's an opportunity, the contractor can tug certain varieties out. It's rather simple. We haven't explored that. If the applicant had no objection to that type of activity, I think it would help the beach grass. I don't think it represents a huge effort on the part of anybody's labor bill. It would give the beach grass a chance. There's natives in that bank, so culling out the invasives might give the natives a chance. But part of this, the project does not include the type of wholesale remediation that you sometimes see as a permit application. It's one of those cases where I think getting the bank stabilized in both cases is probably a good idea before someone takes a larger shot at that bank. So it could be something for the future.
And where the returns are as well and on the ends. You say there's, I didn't really notice too well, but there's bayberry on one end?
Bayberry on the east, the best crop of poison ivy I've seen in a long time on the west.
Okay,
I think it's native.
okay,
It is native.
yeah. Okay, let's see, what else do I have? And the black cherries, yeah, those are falling a
Yeah,
bit.
there may be a sprout. I think that in the long distant future, there may be a need to prune any residuals, but that's not, we're just trying to cut them, remove them from colliding with the bulkhead alignment. And if something happens to sprout in there, because I don't think we're yanking the whole root. We can't get the whole root, but a lot of it.
Maybe a couple of replacement trees along that bank somewhere?
Well, down low, they'll be subjected to floods. We have an elevation of 4.5 for the bulkhead, but the flood is 12. So I think it's a better bank for a salt-hardy shrub community.
Okay. Okay, maybe we can explore that then. And what about access along the beach? Will that happen at all?
Yes, I think it's important to have the mats as part of our protocol where workmen will be down there tightening bolts and guiding the hanging of the sheets and providing any hand labor that will be necessary.
And how will the machine, the dingo, be accessed?
I believe you can get onto the lawn and get materials delivered to that far left area. If you need us to designate a work route, that can be done. If you've been there, you know it's an open grass area.
Okay. I think that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I got a lot of hands up. Do you want to go before? You are good? Okay. I see a hand up. Mr. Armstrong, are you with the project or butter?
I'm in a butter.
Okay. Let's go ahead and hear from you. Yeah.
Thank you all for your efforts with this commission and including me. I'm a part owner. My sister and I own a house abutting, and I have a question about, has anybody looked into the possibility of displaced erosion to the abutting properties by putting up or extending the breakwater?
We do consider that type of phenomena, which would be termed some sort of reflective action. It's not fully predictable. The observations that we have made are that going east along the Andre property at number 86, the conditions improve for stability. It's not clear to me why the bank is eroding except for a long-term punishment from boat wakes. I think the erosion that goes along the Andre property is sufficiently distant from the bulkhead that it's not related to the bulkhead. I'm told that there's certainly some flood tides and a lot of boating activity in the oyster pond, and that it creates a constant wake condition when you would not ordinarily have waves at high tide. And I haven't seen any erosion breaking out east of the Andre property where we have our last slumping portion of the bank. In the long course of time, I can't predict that there won't be erosion on adjacent properties. Our job is to remove the bulkhead from the lot line as much as practical. And we look at the oyster pond as a pond. It is not the ocean, but it does have fluctuating end storm tides. So the prevailing wind during a strong northeaster is coming from east to west. And while there can be winds from the west that would accompany a high tide, we don't see a large a chance that this extension of the bulkhead would cause erosion on adjoining properties. It would cause erosion, if any, on its own property first. And that's why I mentioned in my presentation that the east end of this needs to be very carefully placed so that it does not cause for any excavation of the land where it goes in, where it's installed. But I'm only able to say that there's a point in space to stop the bulkhead. We've selected a location that takes it within 5 feet of the lot line. We haven't taken it to the lot line. And I think it's safe to say it could be shortened a little bit. It could be stopped farther from the lot line. But if you just look around down there, you will see that the way that bulkhead was done, it was just haphazard. And so we have erosion here in the center that is related to water getting up on that bulkhead and then having an unrestrained ability to pour out of it. But I think looking at the durability of the land, the durability of the vegetation as we go east and west, with the salt marsh that's there, I don't see a large potential for erosion caused by the bulkhead. and I'll finish this dissertation with the comparison of a sandy area. If we had a sandy beach and a sandy bank, the same concern should be present about collateral erosion. And there are cases where we have that, but there are also cases where we don't. Some of the ones that I've noted were in Pleasant Bay, nearer to the Wauquosit Inn, facing east, where bulkheads are not causing collateral erosion. So there's even least chance of that occurring here.
I would note, we've owned the property since 1985 that we're in, and I don't think there's been an increase in boat use in the pond. There's a lot of water sports, but we've not noticed that. There is significantly increased tidal flow, higher highs and lower lows, just the average, not including the storm surges that happen. Our hypothesis is it has to do with the breaches that have happened across Nauset Beach. But there is a significant increase, and we've noticed on our property a significant erosion, and just normal high tides are coming up to where storm high tides used to be. So, knowing that things push both directions, I just feel like it's worth pointing out that could be something that would wind up happening. And I don't know if we need to sort of be able to also apply for fortifying our property if it does begin to erode at a faster pace than it has. It's just in the back of my mind. I don't mean to stop the project. I'm just wondering if this is going to have an impact. It doesn't sound like it's been totally looked at.
It's a valid concern. We answer it routinely. It's not perfect science. I tend to look for comparative cases, and in this case, there's a least chance of many that there would be collateral erosion translating off-site. And I agree that the tide range changes are due to the barrier beach changes, but also to the federal channel does allow water to come in more efficiently, so you will get a tide range change there. There's not much more I could add. We can look at the end of this and take it a little bit farther from the lot line, just to think about your concerns, to try to allay any outright concern.
Thank you.
I will just note on that, I think generally we try and do 10 to 15 feet if possible, if it's practical. So yes, shortening it up from on the 86 side, if it makes sense with the topography, would be a good idea.
I don't disagree. We're 19 feet from the bank top at our closest. However, as we go in that direction, I think we can make an adjustment to satisfy you.
Okay. Janet?
Thanks, Bob. I have a quick question, Bob, on 85. I will tell you that I had a very hard time. In fact, I could not locate the existing concrete steps going down the bank because of the overgrowth that exists in that area. So I'm wondering I hear you that it's mostly handwork, but it's still, because they're set in the bank itself, it's a significant impact on the bank. And so I'm wondering what the justification is, given that this property has its own private staircase as well as access to an association stair.
Good observation. I went back to stake those stairs, and I had to hunt around for them also. And we did stake the top and the bottom.
I did see this top, and
Okay.
then I could not see any. I started down to see if I could not. I wasn't going to take the chance of heading down.
I admit, and would be the first to tell you, it's one of those things that is in place today. It may be revealed again someday when the vegetation changes. But it was the applicant's wish to see included in the application that we addressed it for purposes of reclaiming them. And we'd need to find out how you feel about that, as well as what would be the likeliest outcome if these steps, which they're steps, are replaced. Our position is they can be replaced and the area can recover. And then it would require some periodic pruning so that they don't disappear again. And it is a pleasant thing to have. It'll get you down to that shoreline during the winter. Otherwise, you're jumping down 4 or 5 feet off the bulkhead because the other stair is seasonal. So it's up to the commission. We've set forth a way that we believe it can be done and minimize the footprint. And that if you preferred that it was elevated, that's a more elaborate project. It would have more visibility. I'm not sure we want to go there. And it's really something that we may need to speak about with you. I'll have to hear more. And Janet, I appreciate your comments, but I know the upside is that we can do this and get those blocks out of there, and rather than leave the gaps in the soil, actually, put a small terrace in there, which if you think about it, we'd be stabilizing that pathway.
And I guess because I could not get down to the bottom, what I don't understand is what happens at the bottom when it intersects the bulkhead. Does the bulkhead block the access at that point? Or the stairs, do they predate the bulkhead?
That's a good question. They could be about the same. It's hard to say. The bulkhead turns inland there, and it's about 1 foot off the ground. The profile indicates a little bit about that. It's still a step down to the beach at that location, but it's about 1 step, a little bit more than 1 step.
Is that the CC profile?
Yes.
I see it. Okay, well, I still, given the amount of impact replacing those steps involves, I still wonder whether there's a need to do that, as opposed to just leaving them and perhaps doing some pruning to reveal them. But I'll leave that there for the moment, because I want to move on to my questions about the bulkhead itself. Yeah, there's CC. Yep. I see what you mean. Okay. What is the proposed height of is it going to be the same height as the existing timber bulkhead, or you keep referring to it as a, what is it, low profile?
Well,
What is the height?
Well, it'll vary because the beach contour varies. It goes from subtidal, intertidal to above high tide as you go to the west, and the same type of rise in the ground occurs as you go from west to east on number 86. The cap elevation is 4.5. The beach elevation ranges from about 1.5 to about 2 and change. So the bulkhead today ranges between, it's a little uneven, it ranges between 4 and 4.5. So it will appear to be approximately 3.5 feet to 4 feet above the mud line or the sand line.
Okay.
My preference, since the soil is difficult here, would be it's a product that is a composite. It's not plastic. It's a composite. It's about 3 times the strength of plastic. It's a dark colored, kind of a charcoal colored composite sheeting. We're just trying to minimize the parts and the busyness of it so that it's really just a line of corrugated sheeting that would be dark in color, which would be preferable. It won't stain, and I don't think it'll jump out at anyone, with 1 timber frame whale along the top. So you don't see very much, but it is effectively of the same shape that you've got there today. except the sheets will go vertically instead of horizontally.
Okay, and so since the flood elevation is at 12, and this is significantly low, how often does this bulkhead get overtopped by water?
Good question. I think it's safe to say, and I've not been told that, oftentimes the property is not occupied during our winter northeast season. I believe the flood elevation at this site is a hurricane-related flood, and northeasters would more routinely push water into this area and into Nantucket Sound and in the area around Stage Harbor, so that a common strong northeaster flood in the Nantucket Sound area is around 6 to 7. And it's got to go through restrictions. It's got to come in through Stage Harbor and up the river and get into the pond. And I'd be surprised if we saw flood elevations much above 6 or 7 on a routine basis. But the flood elevation listed by FEMA, related to the strong hurricane that could arrive here, is 12. But in my experience, I've found that a low buttress, provided we have good timing. I had one case in this town, actually, where we tried to make a low buttress of stone, and the day the job was finished, a northeaster came in and wiped it out. But if we'd had a couple of years to grow vegetation, it would have been an adequate level of protection. And our belief is that we don't want a tall wall here. A revetment, for example, and we did submit an alternatives discussion, a revetment would be fine. It's just that it occupies so much real estate, requires open excavations, machines, and this just is more elegant and surgically installed and is the right application of a CES for this particular location, in our opinion.
So at number 85, would you attribute the erosion that's going on behind the timber bulkhead to having been overtopped, or is it coming from down the bank?
I think it's overtopping. You see how the bulkhead is starkly open on the east side. If you go down to that landing and take a look, when you do have overtopping storm tides, that water's trying to get out, and it's really what the function of a return is, which is to close the bulkhead into the landmass. You've been there, you can see this bulkhead just ends. There was no return. So if you've visited any of these walls during a strong storm, you'll see that water's trying to get out of the bulkhead, backfill, and it's running like a river.
Excuse me, Bob. Let me see if I can get some. Whoever's not muted, please mute yourself, unless you are Bob Perry. Can you hear me? Well, Nikki's going to try and mute him. Go ahead.
Okay, both of these mics are on. Is that the problem?
I don't think so. I think it's.
Well, the overtopping, when it occurs, it needs to get out. And if you give it a way out, it'll run like a river and it erodes as it moves. Otherwise, I don't believe overtopping erosion, getting over a low-profile CES, would cause a lot of erosion if it's vegetated.
If it's well vegetated, but the problem, I guess, is that period of time between the time the vegetation takes and stabilizes it. Which brings up another related question. Between the new bulkhead in these void areas, and it's an enormous area on 86 because of that large internal void, how much fill is going to be required to backfill behind the bulkhead?
Looks like, I think that cavity could require 30 or 40 yards. It gets compacted. We'd have to calculate that exactly for you, and I'm not sure we'd still be exact. If it's filled with earth, not the type of earth that's on the bank, because that's of a clay sort, and I think there's some fill there now, we would want to make sure that it wasn't loose sand. It would be of of a sort of soil that will be agriculturally appropriate, like a subsoil, has just enough fines in it that will hold moisture, allow for good root development. And while there's that sort of risk, one storm is not going to destroy our backfill. What's gone on here, if you look at the age of the wall and you look at the way the end is just hanging out with just a straight line with no return, there's been a consecutive scouring along the top of the wall as water tried to get out. And the other feature here, I think it's important to mention, is that the sheeting is horizontal. Doesn't go below the soil in any great way. And some of the action of a tide rise and fall, where the water goes behind the wall and then is drawn out when the tide recedes, can take soil with it. So there's 2 or 3 different things that are going on with this wall, which is causing for that distress in the backfill.
Okay, thank you for all of that. I have some other minor questions, but I'm gonna stop at this point and let Karen have her turn.
Good to see you.
Yes, Mr. Armstrong, I see your hand. Is your hand up because of it was previously up or a new hand?
That is not a new hand. I'm all set.
Okay, good. All right, so you can work on unraising your hand while I'll move on to, okay. So
Oh,
Karen.
right, got it. Thank you.
Okay, Karen.
All right, I too am questioning the, on 85, that set of stairs that you can't see, that are so overgrown. It seems, I feel like there are the other stairs that give them access. So I too am questioning that, but also I noticed there's quite a few boats that are on the shore, and they really shouldn't be. And is there any plan to take care of that?
We can certainly discuss that with the owners. I know there's more than just 2 families here. There's a common access. I will have to look into who owns
Right.
those.
Because they shouldn't be on the shore. And then I too would like to see something done with a lot of the invasive that's on that bank. I would love to see that be a part of this project, since, as you said, the beach grass will probably not survive with the invasives. So I would rather see something that should survive be given that opportunity. That's what I had.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Well, I guess that's me then. So, Bob, what is the distance between the existing bulkhead and the new bulkhead?
The existing bulkhead crosses through the 10 feet, and it's going to be something I could point out to you. That's the point, about 15 feet past the common strip, the existing bulkhead ends. So there's approximately a 100-foot proposed extension.
No, I'm sorry. Maybe I wouldn't. I'm talking about the horizontal distance. What's the gap between the two?
Oh, well, we are stationing the new one inboard. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, it looks like from the plan that there's distance between the old
Oh,
and the new.
it's imperceptible. It would be perhaps the width of the wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just didn't want to encroach. It's just a choice that I made.
So there's virtually no distance between the two?
Right.
Okay.
And you're putting the new one in first and then taking out the old one?
No,
or
it's just that
leaving?
there might be a choice to leave some of it. And it's really just a call. It's one of those things that I tend to put into applications that further prevents encroachment toward the tidelands. And if we're governing the placement of this wall to be at the location or landward, we're not encroaching. So it's really a choice that we put onto the plan.
But you're not removing the old one until you get the new sheathing in, correct?
No, there will be some removal. We don't know what's behind this thing. There could be old anchor cables and everything else.
Well, basically, what I'm getting at is if you start taking the old wall, it's not going to, there's going to be some sort of protection before you remove the old.
Right, we're not taking all the wall out at once.
Okay.
Segments of it.
Okay. You mentioned the crane doing a lot of the heavy lifting. How far can it reach?
That's a great question, depending upon the load.
Okay.
We think we have 140 feet, and I would have to call the crane owner and verify our reach for different purposes, different
So
loads.
does that mean, well, just so that'll allow you access to the majority of the bulkhead
Yes.
on both directions?
We're 115 to this side, and we are 120 or so.
Okay.
It's a goal. It was done before. We've made an inquiry. When you're hanging a simple sheet, it's hardly any load at all. Then there is the anchor
Okay.
hardware torque machine, and that might be done with a small machine on the beach, on the mats. But the bulk of this project, if it can be done, which we've done before, with the crane, and I shouldn't say if, most of it being done by the crane just absolutely minimizes the type of activity that you get into on one of these jobs.
Right. So
On the
I'm
ground.
glad to hear that it's got that sort of reach for the
Yeah.
project. So the mat idea, that would be in case you needed to have a light-duty machine, whatever you want to call it, dingo, bobcat, whatever you want to call
Well, on the beach for the seawall we're talking?
Yeah.
That's a rubber-tired mini excavator.
it. Mini excavator,
probably
okay.
5 to
So
6 feet wide.
you've tried this technique before and successfully where you lay sand on a marsh, cover
Yes.
that with a mat. When you remove the mat, the sand's still there, but the marsh, so the sand will get washed away.
Yeah, it's a form of, it's a great point you're raising, because it's important to understand that if you're going to do one of these jobs and you're going to be hem-stitching these areas of salt marsh, beach, quite a bit of marsh, you're not going to be on that mat very long. So the articulation and any kind of movement isn't going to be a long duration on the marsh. But we believe that a thin layer of sand with the mat, then you get it cleared off, the tide will redistribute that sand around. It's a form of beach nourishment. If you were to put beach nourishment in any number of areas, the tide comes in, it sweeps it right away. Very often we have salt marsh within 10 or 20 feet of beach nourishment projects. You will get some sand shoaling on top of the marsh, but it hasn't shown to me anyway that there's an adverse impact.
Right.
So we're protecting the marsh with those two things.
Yeah, so with that technique, you have not observed the marsh being permanently damaged?
No.
Semi-permanent damaged?
Correct. In the winter, what we're trying to avoid is the punching into the peat or
Yeah.
the grinding of the vegetation roots. And if you can eliminate or certainly minimize that, and frankly, I think with sand and mats, you're basically eliminating it.
Okay.
You succeed.
That's good, because you mentioned the peat, and that's what I observed, that's not just it's a marsh based on top of a peat layer.
Right,
And so you can't restore that peat layer if you damage it.
right.
So it's imperative to not damage it.
Yeah, I'm fortunate, I think, to work with people who understand exactly that, and they want to leave it like they found it. And I know it's kind of common for somebody to tell you that, but that's what we're striving to do.
Right,
We're
okay.
trying to leave no impact.
I think you mentioned something about taking pictures of, I think if we approve this, I think I will say that we should have conditions where we get some nice photos ahead of time, get some nice photos afterwards to make sure that very healthy marsh was indeed not damaged.
It's common, we do it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm happy to have
But as
photographs.
far as restoring it is concerned, if need be, I'm not sure how you're going to do that.
How about,
If
sorry?
you have to restore that marsh, I don't know how you would do it.
That's not practical.
Okay,
There's just no making a mistake.
we're on the same page.
Just for ease of mind, I was out at 0 and 110 Old Salt Works the other day, and they kind of did the same thing with the sand
Okay.
and mats to do the nourishment at 110. And I was out there yesterday. You can't even tell they were out there.
That's good.
So
That's comforting, all right.
yes.
So, let's see. We've talked about the trees were brought up. You have a couple of large, you described them as, I think you were saying they were slumping over or something like that.
They've fallen and they're growing out of the bank.
Yeah, I didn't, that wasn't the impression I had, but maybe you're right. It just seemed to me like that they were old and they were growing horizontally, resting on top of the existing bulkhead. And so, I mean, if you get rid of those trees, and it sounds like it looked to me like you would have to, and you're, I think, saying you will have to most likely remove them. Normally, in a project that comes before us, when vegetation, significant vegetation like that is damaged or removed, it's got to be compensated for.
Sure.
So just your thoughts on how and what that might look like.
While overhanging.
Because the trees are alive,
Oh,
right?
yeah, they are.
Yeah, okay.
They're under stress, but I'm not an arborist to tell you how much. What I do know from being over there quite a bit, now that we've gone into our growing season, is that there would not, and somebody may correct me, but it's not common to find a black cherry that's probably many years ago, it got on the bank, it slumped with the bank, and it's kind of growing horizontally, but it's creating a tremendous amount of shade on the bank. And I shouldn't say the bank, but also the marsh. There's a high marsh that's developing in there. We've got a tide line. My prediction would be, even though there's no objection, but I'll have to discuss it with the Andres, there's no objection to enhancing the vegetation. They've recently had, I believe it was a Blue Flax project that did invasives remediation. So actually an ongoing project there. But when you remove or relieve the high marsh, and in fact even low marsh, from the intense shade that's being caused by that slumping black cherry, you're going to see denser marsh development. And alternately on the bank, without the shade, you'll have the ability to grow a more robust shrub community there. And again, I like trees too. I'm reading the Overstory right now. It's super. And I want to say that there's no problem compensating for those true black cherries. There's a way to mitigate that. We just haven't provided it to you because the topic just came up.
Yeah, okay, again, so that's really, I think, my main point is that I didn't see really very much discussion in the proposal on mitigation. And I think some is called for. How much is called for and where, I just don't know. But you didn't seem to have a restoration person involved.
No, there's already one on site, and we can certainly consult there.
Okay.
Probably a good idea.
So did you say that there's a restoration project already ongoing on this property?
I believe there is an order of conditions possibly in force for the higher part of the coastal bank in the area of near to the house.
Oh, okay, but not affected by this project? It would
Well,
not
I think
seem to be, or-
given the discussion about mitigation relative to the bulkhead, I think there's going to be a dovetail fit into
Okay.
that. It has
All
to
right.
be.
All right. Then you can have that conversation, those conversations. Let's see. Let me just make sure I don't have anything. Oh, as far as the path on, I guess it's the left property, was that 85?
85.
The part of the stairs that goes over the bulkhead is labeled on this plan as seasonal, just as the one through the common access path is labeled seasonal. And I thought I heard you say a while ago that a rationale for retaining the path on 85 was that because the other one is seasonally removed, but isn't this one also seasonally removed on the one on their
The
property?
stone, both of the stairs that are central are removed seasonally, and the reasoning on the stone steps were that they would remain permanent, providing access to
Oh,
the
I
shore.
see, I see. You don't want it to be
Year-round.
seasonal. Okay, okay. That's just existing condition.
Yes.
Oh, I got it, okay. All right. See, Janet, were you going to, did you have further questions, or you do? You're muted right now, but,
There, sorry. I just wanted to follow up on the point that you were just making, Bob, and that was my other question. I noticed that there was no mitigation, and I was thinking about what, given that this is an installation of a sheet bulkhead, and the whole design is to be minimally impactful, what would need to be mitigated for? And I think you put your finger on it when you said any vegetation that's removed, regardless of its current condition, should be compensated for. And I would add to that the impacts, any impacts associated with the installation of stone steps, which I still don't feel like I'm going to be able to support, but if I get there at any rate, that does have impacts that should be also compensated for. I noticed that the bank, the lawn on the property goes straight to the top of the bank. There's no vegetated buffer strip at all along the top of the bank. So maybe something along those lines might make me feel better about the activity associated with those stone steps.
okay, thanks, Karen. Janet, I mean. So it sounds like we do have some thinking that needs to occur. Okay,
I've been taking mental notes, and I understand what your questions are, and I certainly understand what your concerns are. So our job is to get with the applicants, discuss the meeting. We will check in with the restorative experts that are already on site and come back to you with a few changes, I think, one of which would be to look at the east end, look at mitigation, discuss the steps on 85. And I know no one's doing any work on this property in this project this summer, so I don't know, a month might be a good distance to continue it for rather than 2 weeks. How's your schedule looking in August?
We have no idea at this point. Our filing deadline was yesterday for July 13th, so that's as far as we know out. But, so August should be fine.
Yeah, I think we just need that time since we're not rushed.
So it looks like that would be August 10th or 24th.
I think the 10th is adequate for planning purposes.
And then as far as your recap, that was basically what I had as far as what you need to look into.
Yeah,
Okay,
so we'll
so
talk. I'll give you a call.
August 10th.
So we'd request a continuation to August 10th.
and Bob is on that.
I'll make a motion to continue 85 Capri Lane and 86 Capri Lane to August 10th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I vote aye. See you then.
Great. Thank you for your time to discuss it. Goodbye.
All right, the next notice of intent is 230 Stage Island Road. Deborah and Peter Nelson, trustees of the Stage Island Realty Trust, map 13A1, parcel D, or 5D27. I will double check on the SD number. I don't think I got one, but I can look that up real quick. And this is for proposed additions and land management plan.
Hello, good afternoon. For the record, my name is Adrienne Lavolo of East Southeast, and I am here on behalf of Deborah and Peter Nelson of 230 Stage Island Road. The proposed plan includes a few aspects. The biggie is to remove the deck on the south side of the home and replace it with a garden level living space, which is then overtopped by a deck, and adding a rinse-off station on that garden, the lowest level. A couple of other aspects of the project involve removing portions of the porch roof on the street-facing side, and re-angling the walkway. And on the western side, a little bit of porch overhang will be turned into living space.
Oh, sorry, not to interrupt, but is there a certain plan you want specifically for me to show?
I'd say any, for general, sorry?
Yeah.
For general purposes, any of the three proposed shows essentially
Okay.
the same thing.
That's
If we
fine.
need to get into other specifics, I might direct you towards one of the others.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, so the restoration that was previously completed under Crawford Land Management will be continued, and Jen from Crawford Land Management is on the line under, I believe, the username Lauren, yes, and she can answer those specific questions regarding restoration mitigation, and I can answer others.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we go ahead and hear from Jen, because I think it's a significant part of this project, the mitigation aspect.
Good afternoon. For the record, Jen Crawford here on behalf of the applicant. Nikki, would it be possible for you to bring up our plan?
Yes, I believe so. Is it in the same
Thank you.
package?
I believe so.
Okay. Oh, yep, there it is. Sorry, I'm just going to stop sharing for a second.
No problem. Thank you. I guess I can still probably get started while you're finding that.
Sorry.
Our end of the project is pretty simple. There is some naturalized area within the limit of work that will be necessary in order to access the end of the house where the addition is going. With our plan, we have basically we've shown the area that will be disturbed. It will be revegetated at the end of the project so that there's no net loss of naturalized area on the property. We do have a small addition in terms of overall square footage, which requires around 150 square feet of mitigation, which we've provided. The area, there's kind of two areas where we're providing the mitigation, since there is a vegetative buffer strip at the top of the coastal bank already that was included in a previous restoration project. So there's one small area towards the north side of the property, right at the top of the coastal bank, which is currently a mulched area, pretty devoid of vegetation. It has a few paver steppers going to that area. It was used historically as an area for a hammock. The homeowner is no longer utilizing that area, and so in order to help with the revegetation and just continue the vegetative buffer strip at the top of the bank, we are going to be removing those pavers out of that 0 to 50-foot buffer zone and revegetating that area in order to knit that vegetative buffer strip back together to be cohesive. And then the other portion of the project you can see in the just light shaded gray area, the area within the limit of construction that will be necessary for the project, how we will be revegetating that. We are proposing to leave basically a 5-foot wide access path so that the structure can be maintained around that south side. But really, our portion of the project is very simple in nature. There was a very small mitigation requirement. And like I said, there's no net loss of vegetation. There's an addition overall for the project. So if there are any questions regarding that, I'm happy to try and answer them.
All right, thank you, Jen. I think I'll take my turn going first. And so, what I hadn't, The area, the larger mitigation area, well, actually, I have two overall themes. One is the number of trees coming out and the number of trees going in. But first of all, this mitigation area, the larger one, is pretty nice looking as it is, it seemed to me. It looked relatively unsullied by invasives, et cetera. But what you're saying is that so that you can do the construction, you're going to have to get rid of it, and then you're going to have to replace it. Is that what I'm hearing? I can't tell where the limit of, at least on the mitigation plan, where the limit of work necessarily is. Maybe somebody could point it out.
So the limit of work and the access for the project is shown in the dark dashed line.
Oh, that's the limit of work. Okay, all right.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, I see
Yep.
that. Now I see the label. Okay.
Yep, so yes, that area of the property is vegetated in terms of woodland. There is some understory growth there. It is all native. And so it's just, that's the absolute best place for the construction access to be able to come from. There are overhead power lines running along the street. And there just needs to be area for that construction to take place. So it will be revegetated, and I think it's safe to say that it will be revegetated with understory species that are more dense than what is there currently and what is there existing. So I think that overall there will be no long-term adverse effect there. It will be just temporary for construction.
Okay. It's bad luck to be there in the limit of work. Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
But it is also located almost all within that outer buffer zone into the street, so.
That is true. So I see on the plan, I count 9 X's. In the narrative, it said 6 trees are coming out, but I think what I'm guessing that means is that 6 of them are counted as natives and 3 of them are not. So the 3 that are not native don't count in terms of replacement.
Yeah, so actually that might just be a typo on our end, actually. But there are 2 spruce trees out by the road growing very close to the power line. So we did, in conversations with the homeowner, we did propose those for removal. And then there is one, we noted it as a landscape tree. It's an ornamental species located right on the corner of the addition. But the native species, native to Barnstable County, that are proposed for removal, we did propose mitigation for those. We proposed to plant 4 trees and 4 larger shrubs in replacement of those. That whole south side of the property is fairly well vegetated with canopy species, so we didn't necessarily think that it was prudent to replace with a lot of large tree species. We thought that they were already present, and it would be better to help stratify that woodland edge with more understory species. I guess we thought it would be of greater value from both a species diversity standpoint and a habitat standpoint.
Okay, so you are thinking that, for example, if that area is not large enough to support, let us say, an oak, something with higher habitat value, rather than service berries and
So there already
viburnums.
is an overstory canopy comprised of oak species as well as pitch pine species. And in all honesty, generally speaking, oak and pitch pine are early successional species, and they generally support more generalist wildlife species. Versus when you start talking about supplementing with understory species and stratifying those woodland layers, especially with some of the shrub species that we proposed, they're very beneficial for migratory bird populations, especially in the fall. And so I guess we just thought that mitigation and revegetation in that form was of higher value here than trying to put more oak and pine species in with ones that are already growing, to be quite honest. And as well as knowing that there is a structure, not just a deck now, there will be a structure on that end, making sure that we also are maintaining some clearances from trees, I think is beneficial overall for the long-term health of the trees and the structure.
Okay. Well, just as a general rule, there are those of us on this commission who are acolytes of help me out. Oak trees? No, not just oak trees, but Doug Tallamy, who, has written extensively on how valuable oaks are, how many, the 600 species of caterpillars and of insects that it supports relative to, it's far superior to any other tree. So I always argue for an oak, always.
Absolutely. And we'd be more than happy, if it's prudent, we'd be more than happy to review our selection of mitigation species for trees and to include some additional or change those species out. If that is prudent, we'd be more than happy to do that. And
leave it to your professional judgment as to whether it's prudent in terms of your overall plan, in terms of the property line distance, et cetera. But I just want to make sure that if it's possible to put one in there, and it seems like a good idea in your judgment, then let's just, I'm in favor of it. I think some of us on the commission are in favor of it.
Okay, noted.
Okay, just one more. Oh, the rent station. Is there a rent station already in the property, or is it a new rent station?
That would be new.
It would be new. Okay, so it is in.
I'm sorry, this is the
It's in-
homeowner. There is a rinse station already there under the deck.
Oh,
Okay,
stand corrected.
thank you. Corrected. All right. So it's already in the NDZ, the no disturb zone, the 0 to 50 resource area. All right. So we're
That is correct.
we're replacing one with the other. So where will that water go from the rent station?
We also have proposed 5 dry wells around the south area, half of the house, to compensate for some of the roof runoff as well. So that
Okay,
might be
so
one of the
that's to capture
major sources.
both roof runoff and the rent station water. Okay. To the homeowner, of course, we will put conditions in there, being that it's, if we approve it, because it's in the NDZ, that it is indeed a rent station and not a shower, meaning no soaps and chemicals.
Understood.
Yeah, okay. Karen, why don't you go ahead?
Well, now I've heard about why so many dry wells, so I understand that. I noticed that there were some markers that said lawn to the back of the house, and I was just wondering what that was about and what type of lawn.
In terms of what type of lawn, I believe that around the water side of the house, I believe that what's there is was seeded fescue. So it was all drought tolerant fescues, if I remember correctly, from the previous work that we did.
Right. These were
I'm not sure about the
additional,
markers
I
on
mean,
site.
they were staked saying lawn, which I'm not used to seeing. So I was curious about whether you were putting in more lawn and maybe taking out some of the vegetation.
And
The
if
only
I-
vegetation that would need to be altered would be that within the limit of work, and it's either shown on our plan to be revegetated accordingly or for mitigation to be placed accordingly. So maybe ESC can give a little bit more detail on that.
And if I may, Thad Aldridge from East Southeast, that will be the future limit of the lawn that exists today. Everything on the water side of it will be cut, taken out and revegetated.
Oh, okay. Also, I did notice that you do have irrigation, but you do say on the mitigation plan planting plan that you're going to install temporary, so it will be temporary? There
The
won't be no
temporary
permanent irrigation?
Yeah, the temporary irrigation that we spoke of on our mitigation plan would be intended for the purposes of establishing those mitigation and restoration plantings. And once those plantings are established, the irrigation for those items would be able to be removed. It would no longer be necessary after 2 to 3 growing seasons.
Okay, as long as they're temporary, because I just wanted to make sure, since there is permanent also on the property. That's what I
Yes, the
have.
permanent is always entirely in the front of the house, by the way.
Is the
Yeah.
permanent hooked up to town water, do you know?
Yes, it is, the separate meter.
So they need to do a dry well? Or not a dry well, an irrigation well? No, sorry. Irrigation question.
Robert Duncan, Director of Health and Natural Resources. I believe I heard the owner say that the existing irrigation system in the front is connected to town water on a separate meter, and that's exactly what they should be doing.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, that is correct.
So that suggests that it's registered as an irrigation?
Correct.
Right, okay. Got it. To my right, anyone in? Okay.
Thanks, Bob. I got a question here. On the native plants in the access path, the new access path, the viburnums, the arrowwood viburnums are pretty beautiful, pretty large. Is there any way to save those plants, dig them up, heal them in, and then transplant them back in?
It may be feasible that those could be dug and moved. I'd have to review them on site again in terms of their size and if they're growing, if they're growing directly adjacent to, to a tree or something like that. It may not be feasible to be able to get a large enough root ball on them. And it also would be dependent upon the timing, but it may be feasible, yes, and I'm happy to review that.
Yeah, because I think they're kind of growing all alone themselves in an area, so I think you could probably transplant them, from what I could see.
Yeah.
You know.
I think I remember the ones that you're speaking of. So, yeah, I'm happy to review that on site and get you more information on the feasibility of that.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, I think that was it. That was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So, where are we? Mr. Duncanson.
Sorry, I wasn't going to comment, but I think it's important to get it on the record. And this has to do with your conversation about the rinse station. My recommendation is always not to use dry wells in situations like that because they're only rinse stations, it's only water. My recommendation is to just let it go onto the ground or do some kind of a gravel pad or something like that. We're always trying to get water into the root zone, and unfortunately when we do dry wells, and the same thing holds for roof runoff, I'm no longer a firm believer in doing dry wells. I think we should look at rain gardens and all and keep that water up in the root zone. It's more beneficial to the environment and the plantings and whatnot. So just a suggestion for the commission to consider when you get faced with things like roof runoff or rinse stations or even outdoor showers. I think the best thing in an outdoor shower, just let it go onto the grass or something like that, provided it's in an area where it doesn't result in erosion or anything. And let Mother Nature deal with any soaps or anything like that that may be present. So just a suggestion.
Well, I'm with you on, Dr. Duncan, I'm with you on that, except for the soaps part, but.
Pat Eldridge. The proposal is to have a gravel base underneath. This steps down. We would have to regrade in order to allow the water to come out. We want the dry well down there for overflow, just in case that gets silted up, and we don't want to have a watery mess in a low area that goes right into the basement. I agree with Dr. Bob that, yes, they should flow and they should get become part of the root system, but in this case, we would have to regrade the whole backyard to make that happen, and it makes more sense just to let it go into the ground, and if it overflows, get it into a dry well.
You would have to regrade in order to put in a rain garden instead of dry wells?
Or just to have the rinse station, so there, the proposed location of the rinse station, you can see the arrow. Below that, there are 3 stairs, so they're going to be stepping down to the basement level, turning left, and they can go into their rinse station. Again, we'll have the gravel base so that the water will go through. We'll have the dry well for, should things go awry, it doesn't go into the basement. From those steps, if you go straight, you're going into their basement. But the grade outside is just 1.5 feet higher than the basement floor.
Okay, well, I'm on board with the general suggestion, so, you convince me, where we can, go for a rain garden, keep it at root level, keep the runoff at root level.
I said, we tried for it on this one, but
Okay,
we ended up painting ourselves into this corner and
okay,
went forward as best we could.
all right. Janet, do you have a new hand?
Yes, before you walk away, my question is for you. Following up, asking you to clarify what you said about the lawn on the water side. When I stood there, the stake that I looked at that said lawn area, looking at your plan, it's on the, at the top of the, no, go back up. Can you go back up, pick up the steps, the area of the steps heading down toward the water? Because I was walking along the top of that steps when I turned and saw the stake right there, right about where the pointer is now, in a naturalized area, and it said lawn. So I'm trying to understand, it's outside the limit of work, and what is coming out of that area that's going to be lawn, or is the stake in the wrong location?
Well, the stake must be in the wrong location. It shouldn't have been outside of the limit of work.
Okay, because it was down at the walkway. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
the path to get out to the
Yeah,
elevated
right there where
stairs.
he has, or
Okay.
whoever's controlling, where the hand is, that's basically where I was looking at it.
So the goal is to maintain the 4-foot path to get out to the stairs, and then some of that area, and you can see where the mitigation is proposed, we'll be filling in some of that, so it will no longer be as wide of a path. So it's
But
what exists there.
there's no intent to remove any of the naturalized vegetation that's there and put in lawn.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard you say something and I was confused. I wanted to clarify that that's what we've got here.
No, and I'm sorry, I thought the question was on the stakes at the north end, where we stated the same.
Yeah, no, okay. Got it, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Janet. Anybody else? So where are we with this? We have, it sounds like we don't have too many issues with it, except my normal issue with Plan and Oak. And it sounds like if you're going to consider it, I'm not sure that it's necessary for us to come back to another hearing for that, but.
So I think just maybe an addendum that Jen could do, just reviewing if the viburnums were able to be saved, revising or thinking about mitigation to include the trees. So just kind of, a 1 or 2 page addendum to your land management plan to consider the vegetation things that we discussed. And then other than that, it looks like it's mostly just things that will come up in the order of conditions,
Yeah.
such as the gravel pad and maintaining the 4-foot path and things like that. So
Yep.
with that, I would say July 6th, I believe it is, for an order. Yes, the 6th.
Okay.
Make a motion to continue 230 Stage Island Road to the work session on July 6, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Karen,
Who?
Janet. Tired today.
Aye.
And Karen.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, we have our final order of conditions, 54 and 0 Bar Cliff, Chatham Fish Pier, Town of Chatham, map 16F, parcel Pier 5 and 7. I do not believe we got the SE number for this one either. And this is installation of a sheet pile bulkhead, reconstruction of existing timber stairs and landing, and add a walkway from the upper parking lot.
Afternoon, Robert Duncan, Director of Health and Natural Resources. I'm just going to give a quick overview of this project, and then with your forbearance, I'll turn it over to Susan Nelson, who's from Foth Engineering, who's the lead engineer on the project. So, as you know, the Fish Pier has been part of Chatham since the 1940s. It serves the commercial fishing fleet, as well as during the summer season, a significant number of tourists that come to visit the pier. And as you know, a couple of years ago, we rebuilt the observation deck. A number of years ago, back in 2016, we hired Parr Associates, who did a complete evaluation of the Fish Pier facility, basically the entirety from the upper parking lot all the way down to the seaward side of the program. They developed a report that contained a large number of recommendations for various improvements and fixes to the pier that we've been working on implementing over a number of years. Around the same time, around 2015, we had an excavator working on the south jog, doing some dredging, which we frequently do. We do some of it by dredge, and then we do some of it by excavator around the south jog and the north jog. And the excavator fell through the concrete pad on the south jog because the bulkhead had, which was installed back in the about almost 50 years ago now, had suffered a number of holes, and gradually over the years the tides had pulled all the fill out from underneath it, and the excavator collapsed the concrete substructure, if you will, or the pad. So that was identified as a priority item to fix or evaluate and then fix the bulkhead. We went through that evaluation. We brought Foth on board, who we had worked with as part of the observation deck project. And it was clear that the almost 50-year-old bulkhead around the south jog needed to be completely replaced. So this project, the major component of this project is a replacement of the south jog bulkhead. So basically everything from the northwest corner of the south jog to the south and then around the south jog itself, as well as improving some of the utility lines which are currently attached to the seaward face of that bulkhead. So every time we get a significant storm event, we end up losing electricity and or water. So one of the improvements will be to move those utilities on the land side and bury them under the parking lot behind the bulkhead. And then the other thing that we're trying to fix here is the pedestrian issue. As I said, the Fish Pier is, as people say, either the most or the second most visited place in Chatham. But it is also a commercial fish offloading facility. And as you can imagine, sometimes tractor trailer trucks and families with kids and strollers don't meet well. So we're going to try and separate those two functions as best we can. There is an existing marked path, which is shown on the plan by that heavy kind of gray line that runs from the Wharfinger Building observation deck down to the new observation deck around the packing house. But we have a lot of folks that walk from, they come down the stairs and then they want to go over to the South Jog floats because that's where either a private boat picks them up or some of the commercial boats that run tourists out to the beach or the whale wash tours. So we have a large number of people basically cutting through that parking lot. At the same time, we have fishermen's trucks, we have box trucks, we have tractor trailer trucks. So one of the things we're proposing is a footpath along the west side of the parking area and then along the south side of the parking area, and then a cantilevered walkway will be added to the south jog to basically separate pedestrian traffic from the vehicle traffic, if you will. So those are the major highlights, along with rebuilding the observation deck and the stairs around the Wharfinger building, and also adding a sidewalk on the access road coming down from the upper parking lot. Because we have a lot of families with strollers and all, and now the only way to get down there is either carry down the stairs, which people don't do, or they walk down the roadway where we have tractor trailer trucks and everything maneuvering, so we're proposing to put a sidewalk along there. So with that brief introduction, I will turn it over to Susan Nilsson from Foth, who can walk you through some of the more detailed aspects of the plan. So, over to you, Susan.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. I think what might be most helpful is I have a presentation that I can share, and I'll go through some of it fairly quickly because Bob gave a great overview. Let's see if I can do this. I'm just on one monitor, so excuse me if it's a little bit clunky. How's that?
Yep, we see it.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I will be looking at the presentation, not at you, so please feel free to interrupt me if you would like. So first, just order of business. I did find a file number this morning on DEP's website, so that might have been newly posted. But we're here today to present the site improvements, which were described: the bulkhead and pier oversheeting, walkway, timber stairs, landing, as well as the sidewalk. So I wanted to just give a brief location description. I think everyone's probably pretty familiar with it, as well as an overview of the project, the alternatives analysis that we looked at for addressing the bulkhead, wetland resource areas, the reason that we're here before the commission, and then touch upon the construction methodology and protection of those resource areas, and then open it up to questions and discussion. So let's see. So as Bob said, it's one of the most or second most visited site. So I just wanted to highlight for those that might not be familiar with the location. It's shown here on a large scale plan, and then as you zoom in, you can see the building and the South Jog and Barcliff Ave extension that comes into the site. The history of the site is that the original facility was constructed in the 40s, and the South Jog bulkhead that we'll be talking about today was constructed in about 76, hence the almost 50-year service life that it's provided, and we can refer back to this site as we look at the different features. But I think it is important to recognize that it's not only the commercial fishing, there's recreational boating, the Coast Guard, harbor master vessels, as well as the large pedestrian use of the site that we're looking to make sure we accommodate with the improvements and maintenance activities. So just pulling out of the plan sheets, I wanted to highlight the areas of work that we'll be talking about. The bulkhead oversheeting is certainly one of the most critical items. It's outlined here in blue. It spans over the existing bulkhead and then around to the South Jog Pier. I wanted to also, oops, why did I do that? I wanted to also highlight that there is an area of existing riprap that we plan to remove. So there's a net decrease, or not net, but a decrease in impact areas based on the removal of that riprap, which I'll present. The green designates the pedestrian walkway, trying to get pedestrians to go along the perimeter of the parking area if they want to go to the South Jog. So looking at creating a painted area that'll designate for pedestrian use. And these areas, I'll talk about the resources, the wetland resources, but basically the bulkhead is within land under ocean or a portion of coastal beach. The shellfish suitability is shown here in a hatching. So it really is a very small area. It just barely clips the end of the South Jog Pier. And then you have land subject to coastal storm flowage, which this is the FEMA line, and it's everything to the right of this line is a velocity zone. Between these two lines is an AE zone. So you'll see that the proposed deck replacement and stair work, as well as the sidewalk down Barcliff Ave, are outside the wetland resource areas. They are within the 100-foot buffer. A portion of them is. It comes back to about here. So that's why I just listed those in gray to designate they were buffer zone versus in the resource area. So for the bulkhead analysis, we just heard quite a bit about a project in terms of, well, let me back up. First alternative we looked at was to do nothing, and that really does not meet the project goals. It doesn't address the deteriorating condition of the bulkhead, and it wasn't considered further. We don't think it's an option to do nothing without having to have serious restrictions for the use of the site. Alternative 2 was to install the new steel sheet pile bulkhead landward of the existing bulkhead, and that's where we just had another project that spoke quite a bit about that. I want to point out this is quite a different situation. At this site, we have sheets that will be approximately 50 feet in length. We're in a velocity zone. We have exposure to wind and wave action. We also are looking at an existing bulkhead system that has a tieback system and anchor in order to hold up the sheets. So in order to install landward, you would place significant risk on the structural stability of that existing bulkhead, as well as you'd have to excavate to take the pressures off the bulkhead in order to be able to excavate. You'd excavate to get the pressures off in order to be able to cut any of the tiebacks. And we felt like the larger area construction combined with the risks as well as the higher construction costs did not make that the preferred alternative. So we looked at alternative 3, which is oversheeting. In other words, placing the new steel sheets directly seaward of the existing. It does have a slight encroachment. It's limited to the width of the steel sheeting, which is about 20 to 24 inches of that corrugated sheet. And we think doing that with the ground anchors and tie rods is the best approach. It does have minimal impacts to the resource areas, but it's a really common way to approach these commercial facilities in terms of maintaining the bulkhead and being able to keep it in service. So we proceeded with alternative 3, and this is just detailed here a little bit more. These are all shown in the plan set that was provided, but it shows the oversheeting going around the perimeter. I would note that the riprap's removed, which I'll show a photo of, excuse me, in a moment. Also showing a cross section, just showing that new steel sheeting. As I said, they're about 50-foot long sheets. There's a concrete cap, and then the fender piles are replaced, similar to the condition that they're in, which is just proud of the existing bulkhead. We also are planning to do a cathodic protection system, which will help preserve the steel in the long run, minimizing corrosion. And just a photo of existing conditions. The walkway, this is really minimal impact. There's a little bit of paving just to square off, create a clean edge. We're going up to about a foot away from the property line. And as described, this is just to be able to really keep pedestrians safer and get them around the perimeter versus having them sort of throughout the entire site. So wetland resource areas, I just want to point out, I did notice as I was looking at this morning that there was an error in the label on table 1. So I just want to take this opportunity to clarify that. This column should be the total area. It's the sum of existing and proposed. And so the total change is about 1,560 square feet. And that is based on the creation of that walkway. So that's what those numbers represent. And I apologize that this was mislabeled. The other way to look at the wetland resource areas is, as I said, it's land subject to coastal storm flowage. So the purple represents the velocity zone, the green is the blue rather is the AE zone. And you can see here's the Wharfinger building and Barcliff Ave extension where the sidewalk and the deck replacement would be. The other impacts are land under ocean, and these are calculated based on the oversheeting or alternative 3, which are represented in the notice of intent. And then that oversheeting does impact about 66 square feet of blue mussel habitat. And as I showed, that is just at that eastern edge of the South Jog. But we do have a removable aspect. This is the existing riprap shown here, which will be removed in order to allow installation of the bulkhead. And our coastal analysis indicates that by replacing the sheet pile, we don't feel that that riprap is needed to prevent impacts. And so we think it's an advantage to be able to remove that and regain that wetland resource area, which is about 645 square feet, and 460 of that is below mean high water. So it's within coastal beach and land under ocean. And then, as I said before, the walkway is just minor paving, and that's within the land subject to coastal storm flowage, and is shown in the table. So I just wanted to zoom in a little bit on this. Here's another photo showing the existing riprap and the bulkhead, and again, just highlighting the area of the oversheeting. I also wanted to zoom in on this just to show what that existing dead man system looks like. So that is what's currently supporting the bulkhead. Our proposed bulkhead will be the oversheeting, and we'll have ground anchors so that we don't have to excavate or disturb this area from the surface. Those ground anchors are installed at an angle as shown in the cross section. And then this bulkhead will be incorporated using a tieback system. So here, oversheeting really is the only option. There's not a way, to come in behind here without risking the stability of the existing bulkhead for either case, right? When you look at the wharf or you look at the section here with the dead man. And again, here's the shellfish suitability line. So the construction methodology, we envision that the bulkhead installation will be completed from either a land-based or a water-based crane. We wanted to leave that flexibility for the contractor's means and methods. We anticipate it'll probably be land-based, but they may want to bring materials in or work from the barge for portions of it. So we think it's important prior to the start of construction, to require that the contractor submit a site management plan that details all the procedures for their material storage, cleaning of the site, containment of debris, the silt curtain installation and maintenance, which we're committing will be provided during all in-water construction activities. And we propose that plan be submitted for review and approval of the Conservation Commission agent prior to the start of construction. And then I just wanted to add the preservation and functionality of the Chatham Fish Pier, as Dr. Bob said, is really critical. It's of vital importance to the local and regional fishing industry and economy, as well as the numerous public benefits of this site. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, and I can stop sharing.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions? Zero questions. I'll have a question, and while people think of their questions. That presentation of the slides that you have were very helpful to me, because the map showed key elements that I couldn't pick up on the black and white copies that I got of similar slides. So the walkway that's going around the parking lot, is that going to share any part of the parking lot, or is it all new pathway? You're muted.
All right, thank you. It does share part of the parking lot. We really were constrained where we went up to within 1 foot of the property line. So in order to have the width of the pathway, we had to encroach slightly on the parking area.
Oh, so the pathway will then go to the property line?
We went 1 foot up, one foot offset from the property.
1 foot away from, okay.
Yeah, part of the thinking was that within that 1 foot, because we're adding some pavement, and as you can imagine, stormwater is always an issue, especially for me. The thought was, with that 1 foot between the edge of the pathway and the property line, we will do a little bit of a grass swale and basically direct any runoff from the new paved area into that grass swale, and just take advantage of that. Because there's very limited opportunity down there to do any kind of drainage installation. We did some a number of years ago when we expanded the parking area into the easement area that we have from CBI. But other than that, opportunities are limited, and so a grass swale seemed to be the most, it's not going to be a huge area. Walkways, ADA compliant walkways are 4 feet wide. But that gave us that opportunity to at least do something there to mitigate the stormwater runoff.
The grass swale, is that depicted on the materials?
Excuse me?
Is that shown, the grass?
I don't know if it's actually depicted. We probably don't have a cross-section of the sidewalk in the plan, but it may be on there as a note. I can't remember.
Okay.
If not, we will add that to the plan that we're
Yeah,
showing there.
because what I'm searching for here is the fact that, you are increasing coverage, and technically speaking, even though you have a property here which is 100%, virtually 100%
Built.
concreted and asphalted over, your opportunities are few and far between. So if you could show us where a grass swale would be created and used, I think that would help,
Okay.
in terms of thinking about doing our duty to make sure that the people of Massachusetts are compensated for the additional coverage in
Yeah,
terms of
and
mitigation.
just so the commission is aware, because this project won't be coming before you because it's outside your jurisdiction. We are in the process, we just received bids on a stormwater project that involves Kroll Road and also the upper parking lot and Shore Road of the Fish Pier. Because right now, all the runoff from Shore Road, Barcliff Avenue comes down into the upper parking lot of the Fish Pier and then by pipe out through a pipe in the bulkhead. But we've been working on engineering. We just opened bids on a new project that will install a lot of new drainage in the upper parking lot, which will significantly cut off stormwater runoff that ultimately gets to Chatham Harbor. So we're making improvements separate from this project, but it will help that whole entire area as a whole.
Yep.
So just so you're aware of that, because I don't think we have to bring that project to you because it's outside Conscom jurisdiction.
Right, but it's obviously a good thing.
Yeah.
It affects our resource area.
Yep.
What was I going to say? I forgot. Yeah, I actually, when I was there in the parking lot, looking around, trying to figure out things, trucks were coming at me from all directions. And so
Yeah.
clearly a pedestrian walkway is needed in that area. It's surprising that we have not had incidents.
Knock on wood.
So, yes, Janet, you have your hand up.
Just a note, actually, I was glad to hear the reference to the installation of the grass swale, because just to make sure everyone's aware, we approved, there's an ongoing bank restoration project on the bank immediately to the west of the parking lot owned by CBI that we approved, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, but it's still ongoing, I believe. So to the extent that there's any impact on that project, just be aware that we have not closed that out. There's not been there hasn't been a
COC request.
thank you. My jet lag brain. But the swale would actually probably be a very good thing if it's going to abut that restoration piece. So
Yep.
that's all.
Yep, we are aware of what's going on at CBI, obviously.
Yep.
Would it be possible to have that slide deck provided for the record?
Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
Yes, I was going to request that.
That's, because that's good stuff. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, it just came together just before this meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we will get that to you.
I have a question about the walkway. I know because of ADA stuff, especially with town properties, it has to be certain materials and stuff. Is there a ADA accepted pervious paver type of thing that could be used at all?
There are some, I can certainly look into that as to whether or not it would be appropriate for this site, given the fact that, there's a lot of heavy truck traffic, heavy pickup trucks, snow plowing in the winter. But yeah, we can certainly look to see if one of those alternative may be better. I mean, all it would really do would be cut down the amount of, say, stormwater runoff potentially. And that's really what we're addressing with that swale idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, it's not a huge area, but we'll certainly look at that.
Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
of just a curiosity thing
Yeah.
for future reference.
Yep.
And also the swale, you mentioned snow plowing. In Kansas, it's where I'm from, it's a thing. Everybody has a swale to push your snow into instead of having these giant mounds and stuff. So
Yep.
that always makes me happy.
Yeah,
Side note.
Okay, just learned something about Kansas.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, if I could just say, the swale is shown on S106.
Oh, it is, okay.
It's shown on the drawing. It's noted that there's a 1-foot swale between the walkway and the easement line.
1 foot, okay. It's a mini swale, okay.
It's a mini swale. We're 1
Yeah,
foot
yeah.
off the property line.
All right. Karen, I didn't see your hand, but I see it now.
Thank you. Can you just go over the walkway a little bit more for me? Because I believe it's cutting into where trucks now park along the, toward the upper parking lot. And I'm wondering what prevents the trucks from going onto this walkway. And also, is there going to be a way, if people are coming from CBI area, that will keep them from just cutting across the parking lot to get to the Fish Pier Market?
Well, let me answer the second part of that first, and then I'll let Susan talk about the separation between the walkway and the right now, the folks from CBI, they obviously don't come down over the bank because, you're all familiar, it's a very steep bank there. They do have a walkway that connects to the upper parking lot, and then they come down the same stairway that goes alongside the Wharfinger building. So I don't envision that changing at all. One of the things we did look at was putting an ADA compliant walkway on the south side of the Wharfinger building in the gap between basically the Wharfinger building and the property line. But the topography just didn't work. It would have been a nightmare of switchbacks and whatnot to try to get an ADA compliant. That's why we kind of looked at the idea of this sidewalk along Barcliff Ave and then maintaining the walkway that comes from the upper parking lot to the lower lot right next to the Wharfinger building on the north side. Obviously, we can't make that ADA compliant. We have the information from the recent ADA study that was done of all the town facilities, and we've provided that to the engineers. They're incorporating as much as we can into this design, because obviously we want to, we're going to rebuild everything. We want to rebuild it as close to ADA compliance as we can. But we can't necessarily get 100%, but we're definitely going to improve the existing situation. So I don't see any opportunity for CBI guests to kind of short circuit. They may walk way down by the inn and the beach house and walk up the beach as they do now, in which case they would just come right into the new walkway, if you will, on the south side of the lot. But in terms of them coming down over their own embankment, they actually, if I recall right, they actually have fencing along the top of the embankment on their property. So that prevents anybody from kind of short circuiting the system, if you will.
Well, I was sort of blaming CBI people, but I actually walk down that beach to get to the Fish Pier Market to get lunches and things. And I'm thinking, is there something that would prevent people from being able to cut across rather than going around that nice walk on the walkway? And because I can see people going however they want because they just want to get over to get their lunch.
Yeah, we have a guardrail proposed for two reasons. One, to stop cars from driving into the walkway, and two, it would mean you'd have to hop over the guardrail if you want to walk through the parking lot.
Perfect. That's great, because that will keep people from doing it. Thank you.
Sure.
That's all I had.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it will keep people from doing it, Karen. Hopefully it will keep people from doing it, but human nature as well as I do that, the best we try to do and people still manage to find ways around it, unfortunately,
Well, it'll keep me from doing it.
Okay.
All right. Anybody? You got one? All right.
Yeah, I had the same concern about the separating the walkway from the parking lot, but you're going to have some kind of a railing or a guardrail in between to kind of funnel people onto that walkway. But the other question I had was the erosion that I see occurring between the beach and the parking lot, and there was some poured concrete just to patch that up on that end. And I'm wondering whether you're going to do anything to kind of, secure that sand or that area so it doesn't erode.
I'm not familiar with the poured concrete you're referring
It's
to.
right in this picture right here.
Nikki mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, page 3 of 5.
Okay. Is it right on the south side of the
right on
parking
the-
lot next to CBI?
Yeah, it's right on the south end,
Okay.
along the beach.
All right.
Right close to where that riprap is right now.
Well, we could certainly look at doing some more, some beach nourishment once we take the riprap out. As you know, we have to dredge around the South Jog float and all fairly regularly. And we're always looking to place material. So we could certainly talk, we have talked with CBI and we've placed material on CBI's property before. So I'm sure they wouldn't mind having some more sand to reinforce that area.
And even to plant that area as well, after it's nourished. If you can plant that area, that would kind of hold that area
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. It's a tough area because as mentioned, a lot of people do walk along that beach from further down, Claflin Landing and CBI and all, to walk up to the fish pier. So there's always a lot of foot traffic right in that one little area.
Maybe even just put a footpath and then plant around that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. It sounds like we don't have any issue with the project as a whole. Did we mention anything at all that we would like updates on?
I don't believe so. It's always me.
You got a nod.
Susan had mentioned that she gave us the plan that showed that the grass soil was listed somewhere. Yeah, it
it's
was,
on S106.
yes. And just, a small investigation if pervious pavers could be an option. Think about the erosion that Bob just mentioned, but other than that, I don't think we were really waiting for anything.
Okay. It's practically perfect. All right. So I guess if you have some updates to provide us, we will read them. But otherwise, I think we can schedule it for order conditions.
Yep, so that would be July 6th.
I'll make a motion that we continue 54 and 0 Barcliff, Chatham Fish Pier to the work session on July 6, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Janet? I saw your lips move, Janet, so.
Wait, aye.
And Karen?
Aye.
All right, and I say aye too, so
Okay.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next application is a request to amend an order of conditions. This is Phase 2. We heard Phase 1 quite a while ago, I think back in December. But the address is 571 Old Harbor Road, John and Amy Rhinelander, map 16H, parcel 44C2, SE 103499, addition of 3 short walkways.
Okay. I'm George Riley, representing the Rhinelanders. I want to break this into sort of 2 sections here. One is a request for these minor walkways, and if you could put the plan up, I'll just point them
I'm
out.
trying to find it, just a second. Found the architecture plan, but I
Or I
can't
could put
see
them
this.
up here, I suppose.
All right, there it is. Sorry, Adobe moves slow with these large files.
Oops.
Do we have it?
There we go. All right, great. So we're asking for walkways.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have to.
You're going to have to actually stand up the mic.
Okay. I don't have my laser pointer.
Nikki can sort of move the mouse around where she thinks you're pointing to.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just point them out, and then I'll come back to the phone. All right, how's that? So we have here, 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 and here. Okay. So the walkways are the ones between the parking and the guest house. That's within the 50-foot from the top of the bank. Between the parking and the tennis court, which are stepping stones, the patio area and the driveway, which are also stepping stones. Incidentally, there were stepping stones already there, but they've overgrown so much with grass that they're invisible now, so that's it. And then there's some paving outside the bulkhead and outside the existing shower. All right, so that's one section. And then the second section is this constructed landing off the existing house, and that extends into the 50-foot. So I want to leave that separately for a second. The walkways and incidentally that landing are all in areas that are now either existing lawn or, in this case, window wells. So that the landing, because of the 50-foot buffer, is going to have to go before the zoning board for approval because it's a structure within 50 foot of a coastal bank.
Could I ask you to walk over and point at the landing, because I'm not
Yes.
entirely sure I know what that is. That whole thing, okay,
Plus the steps here.
right.
So, we're going to augment the mitigation to compensate for the increased disturbed areas. Now, I looked at the table that I had listed, and it was sort of incomprehensible to me in a little bit. So I did this so we could easily see what it's.
Good, it wasn't just me then.
So you can see that it's divided up into the square footage for the paving and then for the landing, and divided between that portion of the square footage inside the 50-foot and outside. And it all comes to about 1,200 square feet of mitigation. So the proposed mitigation, I'll walk up there again. Here, here, here. That section here was the original mitigation for the original order of conditions. So we're expanding that. Because of the coastal bank dynamics here is really not a coastal bank because it's so far from Chatham Harbor. The important thing, I think, is the isolated wetland. We've tried to separate that, get rid of invasives, eliminate portions of lawn, and add native plant material. Basically it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, since we're talking about that area, that large mitigation area, you say for the previous, is it for, you came before us in December or something like that?
Yes.
For a variety of things, for phase one, and then went away.
Right.
Now you're back. And my notes from what you're asking for phase one then are, I'm having a hard time matching that up with what you're asking for now.
Okay.
So I just want, before, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself.
No, go ahead.
I want to hit this mitigation part first. When I look at that bed there, that large mitigation bed, I see hostas in there, I see hydrangeas in there, I see, which are obviously non-native. So
Right.
I'm wondering if we're talking about the same thing.
Okay. Let me go as I understand what
Okay.
we propose and what we're going to do.
Right.
Let's talk about this area here.
Yes.
All right. That area has a fallen tree and now one that's blown over, and it's largely overgrown. When you come down further than that, here, that's where the ornamental plants are, I think, that you're referring to. All right. So all this area that is abutting the wetland, we were going to create a pathway to separate so the invasives could not get into that area, take the invasives out of that big swath, and replant that area, which at the time, now it's gotten very overgrown, was mostly overgrown lawn and had been mowed, and take that out and put in the proposed plants. Oh, thank you.
Oh.
Now, can I work this? Ah, brilliant. So this area here,
Yes.
we were going to eliminate as much as we can, the invasive plants there, and plant in the plants listed on the plant
So
list.
you're saying the bed that I was looking at, thinking it was that, is actually not shown here, but further
Yes.
this direction? Okay.
Right.
All right.
And we were going to extend that up this way.
Right.
There's a tree there. And then this area here is now lawn.
Right.
All right, so we could take that lawn out and put in the native plant materials to try and connect this whole swath up
Yes. Okay.
to separate that. That's the plan.
So, all right, going back to what I have in my notes for the previous Phase 1, I have
Okay.
written down a deck.
A deck.
Yeah, maybe I wrote it down wrong, but that's what I have. I have stairs, I have pergola.
Oh, I don't know where that came from.
Okay, so that's out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I think originally we
Yeah,
had
so it
a
was-
kayak rack we were proposing in here,
All
and
that
we're
was over there?
eliminating that.
All that was over there?
Yes, and that's gone.
Oh, all of that.
So originally, it was construct the pool, terrace, retaining wall, and kayak rack. And then on December 8th, it was a Phase 1 for construct a deck, stairs, and pergola.
Deck, stairs, and pergola.
Yeah, that's where I'm confused.
I'm sure. This may we gotten confused with that, because this has a pergola over it, but it's not a deck, it's a masonry construction.
Okay.
But I think we're just arguing over minor things. I mean, it's obviously a constructed area.
Oh, yeah, well, you can make the case that they're equivalent, but nevertheless, clarity is always good.
Okay.
So the deck is the
Landing.
landing, and that has coverage over it? So
It
that
has
would-
a pergola over it, but not a roof. So in other words, you don't have to worry about runoff from the roof there. It's just,
Okay, well, it's good to get that cleared up.
right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
So what you asked for in Phase 1 is not really what you're asking for in Phase 2. It's-
That's correct.
Okay,
That's right.
that's the confusion.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
All right, I'm going to step back now and let anybody else with questions,
Okay.
because that was my major failure there. Anyone?
I think perhaps some sort of colored plan might be helpful, just
Yeah.
to call
We-
out
we
the
could do that.
mitigation areas.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. I could just submit that easily colored.
Because it is difficult
Yes, I know.
to see the boundaries of your mitigation areas
Right.
in this plan.
Right.
I agree.
I think we can
And
make
then,
that.
do we have a planting list?
Yes, the planting list is on the plan here.
Oh, yes, you're right,
Yeah.
it was on the Ryder and Wilcox plan, yep.
So,
And
you-
the planting list has been augmented to compensate for the additional mitigation area.
yeah. I mean, what would be ideal is in the mitigation areas with a lot of landscape.
Right, you'd like a more specific plan
Yeah, like
showing where
just a
particular
little-
plants are going to go.
A little letter for the,
Yes.
shad bush
I
or whatever.
understand.
Yeah, so we can,
Yeah.
that's so that the agent can then sort of figure out,
Yes.
oh, yeah, they did do what they said they were going to do.
Right.
Right, we also want to see the density, so how many are being planted in what locations, so that we can see that, and that would be helpful.
Okay.
This, this coverage information that you handed us, of course, what we asked for is to have this in our standard.
Yes, I'm aware. I just did that briefly this morning, and I wanted to make sure it was clear here. I would be happy to put that on the same format that you have in your.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
you
what.
can see that
That's what we
clearly.
need to have for the
Right,
record.
right.
Instead of this. Because
Yes.
it just becomes hard to go from one format to the other.
Right, I understand.
But are any other questions or concerns with the proposal?
I was just going to ask, the existing trees that are shown on the map, those are being left alone?
Yes.
The oaks and
We're
whatnot?
not taking any trees, no.
I have one question. The landing or the deck.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever you want to call it. Is it pervious?
No. So it'll be like a bluestone terrace. It would be more like that.
It'll be wet laid.
Yes. I mean, because we have to deal with the window wells, because you have to have a grate over the window wells, so that it has to be constructed that way, I think.
Okay, and it's pitched away from the house?
Yes, that's correct.
And the shower, how does that drain?
It just goes into the ground under gravel.
And I think we called out the mitigation area with some kind of marking or?
Yes, I think I can do this plan where you can see specifically, I could actually blow it up, where particular plants are proposed.
And also just to delineate or demarcate the mitigation areas with some kind of material like stone or
Right, I think
edging or-
the two things, one we could do is a single rail split rail fence, that's one I often use, or some sort of a boulder marking so that it doesn't get mowed out.
So all those areas will be?
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
Thank you.
That'll be good. We could put that on the order conditions.
Yes.
Right. Anything else? Okay. Sounds like you're largely good to go.
Okay,
Just, you'll give us a few updated,
I will. We do a more specific planting plan for you, and I'll fill out the square footages on your formatted plan.
right. And, yes, very good.
Okay?
Yep,
All right.
and if you get that stuff to us in approximately a week, I think we have a break next week for our meeting, so we have a little bit of time, but enough time for everyone to be
To
able
digest it.
to distribute it and everything. And so, yeah, if you get all that stuff within approximately a week, you can be on the July 6th hearing for the amended order.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need a motion, right?
I'll make a motion that we continue 571 Old Harbor Road to the work session on July 6, 2022 for an amended order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I vote aye. And he's already gone.
All right, so we have minutes to be approved for May 25th and June 1st of 2022. So we'll go with May 25th first, if anyone has comments
right.
on that one.
I got a couple of things on May 25th. 22 Glover Square. The first paragraph, I talked about the pipe outlet being marked, and that isn't in the minutes. And then on 45 Harding's Lane, I think it's the third sentence, the planting beds for the mitigation call for bark mulch, which is not normally allowed. Allowed is spelled wrong.
It's loud mitigation.
And that's all I have.
You took that one away from me, Bob. I was gonna have some fun with that one. It's just not the same. All right, so I guess if nothing else, we can go to the other one and just approve them both at the same time.
So that one was June 1st, the next one.
I'll go again if no one else
Go
has
ahead.
anything right now. On 45 Harding's Lane, the second sentence, no wood chip or bark mulch is to be added to the mitigation area. I'm sorry, the next sentence. Commissioner Delvecchio recommended adding a natural mix should be changed to native seed mix around the plantings. Got that? Thank you.
As long as we're in that paragraph, it says that I recommended adding a special condition and note that the dry laid patio needs to be dry laid. I'm not sure what I meant by that, but yeah, it should be dry laid, but I guess what that means is just take out the first dry laid and keep the second dry laid. Yeah, that must be it. And the last sentence in that paragraph, the mitigation plan needs to be revised again and add shading for mitigation areas, I think is what I was after, what I typically am after. Okay, that's all I have. Anybody else?
I have one more thing I
Okay.
forgot to mention on June 1st. 110 and 0 Old Salt Works. The second paragraph, second sentence, the chair stated that the agent, comma, the association, and Nick Crawford will get in touch with Coastal Engineering to try to determine what's going on. So the association and Nick Crawford should be included. Thank you.
Quite true. All right.
Just so you know, we did do that the other day. So I think everything's all set. They're going to do a couple, 3 or 4 large bushes, bayberry or
Okay.
something like that. So everyone, I think Kim, I believe it was Kim Burson of the association, and Nick Crawford and all of us were all in agreement that this got very convoluted and confusing. So I think we're all on the same page now. They're going to do some plantings. They're happy with how the nourishment's going and the access for the nourishment and all that stuff. So 110 and 0 Old Salt Works are all set.
All but settled. Okay. All right, so why don't we send these minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 25th and June 1st, 2022, with the changes.
Karen disappeared.
I'll second that then.
Thank you. Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen, if you were there.
Hi.
Oh, you are there.
Sorry
Okay,
about that.
okay.
I was muted and forgot.
Okay, and then I vote aye as well.
All right, so that concludes our agenda items. The only unforeseen thing I thought about asking you all while you're here is, I know a lot of towns, and I don't know if this kind of faded off just because of COVID or if Chatham never did it, but doing group site visits. So basically, we would take the agenda and we would all go around together all at once and do the site visits. I know it can be, it's obviously would be optional. If we would have a set date, so say it would always be the Tuesday before the meeting or the Friday before the meeting or something like that. So if you couldn't make it, you could always go on your own, of course. But I didn't know if there was interest in that. That way I can also, which I know can go positive or negative, to have the representatives know that we're going to be out there if they want to explain staking or any of that kind of stuff. So it's just something I'm throwing out there to see if anybody's interested.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but there's the severe temptation.
For them to plead their case while
Well,
they're out
not
there.
only that, but just from an open meeting law perspective, there's a severe temptation to do business.
Yes, yeah, I
while
mean,
you're
it
there.
would be posted because we would all be there. So it would be posted as
As an open meeting.
an open agenda. I mean, it would basically be an addendum to our normal agenda that would have it that the commissioners are doing site visits and we're going to these 3 or 4 or 5 sites or, whatever. I think, basically it would be what site visits I need to do. And I would say, we're going to do them on Friday mornings if you want to come. So I would add it to our agendas so it would be posted. But no, I mean, it can't be, you can ask questions to try and get clarification. If one person doesn't understand the staking and someone else does, then you can get clarification. But there would be absolutely no discussion of what's happening. And then I would have to do a brief, we went to this site, and I'm basically what you'd say in the minutes is we went to this site and.
Minutes of that.
Yeah, I mean, they're really brief. That's basically, we went to this site, the commissioners viewed the property, and that, that's more or less all you have to.
So other towns do it this way?
Harwich does, or did, again, since.
Orleans does it too.
I know Truro did.
Really?
Brewster did. Everyone did. I don't know if anyone's picked it back up, but I know Truro, Harwich, and Brewster did.
Yeah, I don't know. My schedule, especially in the summertime, is erratic. And so I would feel left out if I didn't get to attend and hear, all the good information that was presented by.
I mean, it's also,
the
if we want to
applicant.
wait till after summer and if people's schedules are
Yeah,
any more
it's
calm.
better personally for me not in the summer.
I think that's probably true for most of us with family and friends and,
Yeah.
people coming and going all summer, so.
Yeah.
But I like the idea, and if we don't have, I've always thought that it presented too many open meeting law problems, but it sounds like other towns have figured that out, so, I have to say, I always enjoy, I always enjoy talking about it with people when I'm there, so,
Yeah.
I can kind of think about what that means, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be, it's more of a clarification thing, or if, that way, if the engineer wants to be there to just guide us through the staking so that, because, sometimes you go out there and you're like, I don't know what the staking is. Where's the
No, like
mitigation
today,
area?
Today with that lawn stake in the middle, I mean, that was
Right.
just very confusing.
Um,
I guess it's no different than when we do on-sites and they're there. I mean,
Right.
we know how to behave then.
And it's, again, a lot of the time they may or may not come. I'll give them, notification of this is the order we're going to go in, based geographically, go in as much of a straight line circle as we can. It does open it up to abutters possibly coming, which
Yeah, it does,
is another thing, but.
Which is okay. The only thing I worry about is it's just a natural human tendency to express opinions about the application versus what you're looking at and say, well, gee, I wonder why they did it that way. If I were them, I think they ought to do it this way. And all that stuff is, unless you're captured in the minutes.
Well, I'm
It's
not
not
shy
really-
about saying, stop talking.
Well, there's that. Yeah, your predecessor used to shush us pretty hard whenever we would start talking about things we shouldn't talk about, but it's hard not
Yes.
to.
Yeah, definitely, but,
I would say as a newbie, I would benefit from that.
You would benefit, yes.
I'm happy when I run into people when I'm looking at the land now. You know, Karen offered this week through my husband to go with me. I had already done some of them, but I think it would be good for newbies to do that, so.
It definitely would.
But I agree with the summer. The summer, let's.
okay, yeah, well, maybe we'll pick it up after Labor Day, and it can also always just be, I tell you when I'm going out, if people want to, you know, join, then that's fine.
At the very least, it could be sort of a trial. You know, let's see how this works.
All right,
Okay.
But
right, I'll put it on to
in the fall.
revisit in a couple months.
Yeah, and make it optional, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely optional. No, I understand. I want to keep a set time.
Yeah.
Because that's easier for everybody to have this set time. So, but if you can't make that, then obviously,
My schedule's pretty busy, too. So
Yeah.
I'm not always able to make it, so.
When would you typically go out?
I prefer to go out Thursdays or Fridays generally.
Oh, okay.
But Mondays, there's a lot of holidays that fall on Mondays and stuff, so that just throws me off. And then Tuesday kind of can be a little late. I know a lot of you do weekends, so obviously I'm not going to do that if I could avoid it, but
No, that would force us to get out there earlier than the morning before. you
yeah.
know.
Well, honestly, it would force me to get out there earlier too, because they sneak up on me as well,
As
so.
long as the materials are available.
Yes,
then.
yeah, they should be, I mean, in general, Crystal emails you on Friday to say they're in the box, but could have them earlier most of the time if,
Well, don't forget us digital people.
yes, yeah. That would also force me to get my Dropbox uploaded in time.
This could be all good.
Yes,
Yeah, this is
a lot of
great.
accountability. But yeah, we'll bring that back up after the summer.
Okay.
That's all I had.
And there's also this MACC thing,
Oh, yes.
Oh, the letter, we should sign that, right?
Yeah, so I had Crystal, I must have an old agenda printed. I had Crystal type it up to be more Chatham-specific, but it's more or less the same wording. So just in support that we are all fine with doing a hybrid form.
I guess that's true, isn't it?
It's totally true. Look at how today went pretty smoothly. You had people there, you had people on the platform, you had commissioners there, commissioners on, and it all worked. So,
Yeah, and who knows if you and Karen would have been, here. We could have been almost without a quorum today, so.
yeah.
So I honestly.
You would be without a quorum. I'm counting 3 people.
Yes.
That would-
I almost was not here because I have, my back went out about an hour before this meeting. So that would have saved a quorum too.
Yes, yeah. I honestly do think it's going to pass. I think it's really just a matter of getting the language passed through House and Senate or whoever has to approve it, so.
Yeah, we obviously endorse it. So there'd be something in the box to sign or?
Yeah, if you want to, I wasn't going to have you sign it.
Oh, just
but if
vote
you
on it?
want to-
Just vote to say?
Yeah, just vote
Oh,
to say
that's
that
fine.
we are in favor of hybrid meetings, and I can sign it on behalf of the commission and,
Okay.
type in your names on
Yeah,
it or
let's
something.
do that, yeah, okay. So that's a weird motion, but go ahead and see what you can do.
I move that the Chatham Conservation Commission approves the idea of meeting virtually and in person, hybrid form for the rest of the
Forever.
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 Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I vote aye, and that is unanimous.
Good. Entering the 21st century.
That's right. It's a little late, but
A
we're
little
there.
late, but we're getting there.
That's the one outcome of the pandemic that was actually positive.
Yep.
All right, I think that's it then.
We done.
I move to adjourn.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
And I shall vote aye. All right, thank you
All
all.
right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. And good luck, Janet.
Bye. Good luck.